Okay. I will share the Mangala Charan screen first for us to recite the Mangala Charan, and then we will continue with the rest of the discussion. Able to view the Mangala Charan verses on the screen, devotees?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Dhira Govinda Prabhu, would you like to lead us in the recitation of the Mangala Charan?
Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Staptam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Eva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, devotees, just to give all of us a context of today's discussion, some time ago we had this idea of having a topical discussion, possibly a series. Let's see how it goes on how devotees should relate to the challenges of the contemporary world. We see that we're facing many difficult situations right now with wars, with local and the global upheavals that we see around us. Um, we are also facing some very serious environmental threats, climate change, and we are also seeing many other uh, difficult situations around us. So, how should we see things from a Krishna conscious perspective? Is what we will be discussing today. And I had mentioned or suggested starting maybe with a small excerpt from Srila Prabhupada's preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I will now put on the screen, and then we can take it from there with Dhira Govinda Prabhu leading us.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Are you able to view the screen?
No, Prabhu.
Okay, just a moment. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Dhira Govinda Prabhu, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Start with some mantra to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering and our conversation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading from the preface to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada wrote this about 60 years ago in the early 1960s. So we're reading one of the short paragraphs from that iconic preface to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the follow-up literature to Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada writes, human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the field of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, thanks for inviting me to this discussion on facing contemporary reality. I see here there's Tim Francis, based in Austin, Texas. Hello, Tim. Thanks for joining us. Just yesterday, Tim and I were having a phone conversation, and Tim used the phrase, a crisis in consciousness, a crisis in consciousness. And so that phrase resonated with me as so aligned with the essence of what Prabhupada is saying in that paragraph. A crisis in consciousness requires a revolution in consciousness. And so Srila Prabhupada uses that term, revolution in consciousness. There's a text from the Bhagavatam from about 5,200 years ago, spoken by Sri Narada Muni to Sri Vyasadeva. Narada Muni says, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. The term viplavo means revolution. And we're not talking about any material, mundane sort of revolution, but a revolution in consciousness. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishloka yavada bhatyafi namanyanantasya yashon kintanya shidantika yantika vinanti sadava. So Prabhupada, he gives the translation and purport, and he says that these ancient wisdom literatures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Ishopanishad, they're destined, they're meant to create a revolution in consciousness, in the crisis of consciousness that symptomizes this current age called Kali Yuga. So just for like Jaganivas Prabhu, in your short introduction, you mentioned different severe problems facing us. You mentioned different, the wars, and you mentioned environmental challenges. So let's just, we can focus on any of them. Let's just say environment, pollution, okay? For example, air pollution, water pollution, no one wants that, okay? Actually, there's if we look at the scientific literature from the turn of the century, around the year 1900, the turn of the century, we can look in the scientific journals, and we'll find that there was an environmental crisis at that time. And those around 1900, the turn of the century, those who were the environmentalists, they were strongly advocating for the development of a new invention called the horseless carriage, also known as the automobile. And the environmentalists of that time, they were strongly advocating that this automobile, this will solve the problem of air pollution on the planet once and for all. The cars will solve the problem of air pollution. And I'm not joking. You can look in journals like Scientific American. It's right there. Okay. So now I'm not adverse to the development. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not adverse to the development of technology. What we're looking at is the consciousness of technology, because if we look at the course of history from the year 1900, the development of the automobile hasn't really solved the problem of air pollution so much. Okay, so in material consciousness, in mundane consciousness, we can count on it. In consciousness in the lower modes, the solution will always be worse than the problem. To the extent that our consciousness is in lower modes, the solution will always be part of the problem. I'm reminded here of a statement by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. His statement begins, "The world stands in no need of any reformer. The world has a very competent person guiding its minutest happenings. The person who finds that there is scope for reform of the world himself stands in need of reform. The world goes on in its own perfect way." And he goes on, and he says that that the course of the world does not require to be changed by the activity of any person. What is necessary is to change our outlook on this very world. Outlook means consciousness. Let's say, okay, again, let's continue with now at the time of the 1900, there was a problem with air pollution. The horse droppings in the cities, London and New York and Philadelphia and Paris, the horse manure was actually causing some lung disease. There was a problem. And then because of lower consciousness, then the so-called solution made things even worse. Okay, so not that we can't use technology or develop technology, but what's the consciousness behind it? Yesterday in the conversation with Tim Francis, we used the example that Prabhupada uses, like a knife. Is a knife good or bad? Well, the knife in the hands of a surgeon, the consciousness of a surgeon, it heals and cures. The same knife in the hand of a murderer kills. Okay, so it's not the knife itself that is virtuous or not virtuous. So let's say, okay, let's say that someone had a solution that, look, okay, if we all say abracadabra and snap our fingers at the same time, then all of the air pollution and water pollution on the planet will be gone. Okay, so actually, no, because to the extent that the consciousness of the inhabitants of the planet, to the extent that the consciousness of the inhabitants of the planet is still filled with tada, rajas, tamo, bhavo, kamalabhadya, greed, hostility, selfishness, insanity, alienation, self-deception, exploitation, to the extent that the consciousness, so then there will still be, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. There will still be spiritual beings having a human experience, and due to greed and hostility and need to control and dominate and exploit, they're going to poison the water supply over here. And in order to increase their, in order to increase their sense of power and control, they're going to pollute the water. So even if we could snap our fingers, if the consciousness doesn't change, the problem will continue. It'll just resurface in 24 hours or a week or two. So Prabhupada is the Srila Prabhupada is giving us Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate revolutionary, not talking about any mundane revolution. And his focus is a revolution in consciousness. Srila Prabhupada often uses the expression. Actually, he said he got it from the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop of Canterbury during World War II was writing an article, and he said, yes, that there's all these devastating wars because we want the kingdom of God without God. Prabhupada would say, we want the kingdom of God means a place where everything is happy and peaceful and vibrant and wonderful. We want the kingdom of God without God consciousness, and that will always be a lose-lose formula. So Srila Prabhupada uses several analogies. One analogy is like if we throw a pebble into a pond and then there are ripples, Right? So each of us, each of the millions and billions of us, we're throwing pebbles into the pond. And then Prabhupada said, then if we each throw pebbles into the pond, then there's all this discordant wave interaction, all these discordant ripples, and that everything is clashing and there's tension. He said, but if each of our stone is going in the center, putting God, Krishna is a name for God. Krishna means the all-attractive, That's a quality of God, the all-attractive supreme person. So to the extent that we throw our pebble and all the pebbles are in the center, then there's resonance, and then there's synergy, and then the ripples are auspicious, and there's no clash, and everything is synthetic and resonating. So that's a metaphor to indicate the quality of change, shift, and revolution of consciousness that will truly bring, as Prabhupada talks about in the paragraph we read, truly bring peace and oneness. Oneness, not in the sense of we all obliterate our personality to be one. No, we use our distinctive psychophysical nature, our distinctive personality, and we direct our desires. It's the nature of the living entity to desire, right? Attempts at so-called spirituality to try to quash desire, that's artificial. It's the nature to desire. Our choice is how and where to direct our unavoidable propensity to desire. And to the extent that we direct our propensity of desire to please God, to please the senses of God, then there's oneness with variety and diversity, with personality. So Prabhupada uses that ripples analogy, and so Prabhupada completely, perfectly representing the authentic, authorized tradition, the ancient wisdom tradition of the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. Then he's bringing us philosophy. He's bringing us knowledge. He's bringing us a system. He's bringing us a lifestyle for which we can, through which we can practically shift our consciousness for all of our pebbles to be resonating right there in the center. And another analogy given to us by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the analogy of if we have a string of zeros, and the zeros can be like, because Prabhupada says in that purport, he says, our society compared to the Middle Ages has advanced technologically, economically. There's so much advancement. And without, it can be a string of zeros, 10 zeros, 20 zeros, 100 zeros. It's all the value is zero. But then if we put the 1 in front of the zeros, then the 1 gives value to the string of zeros. Then it becomes a trillion and a quadrillion, a highly valuable number. And so that 1, that's that shift in consciousness, towards self-realization and and God consciousness. Self-realization, bayam dvitina binaveshatashat, shifting our consciousness from the illusion that I am this body and I'll be happy and fulfilled by fulfilling the needs of the body. That doesn't advocate to neglect the body, but the body's like a car. The driver of the car is not intrinsically happy and fulfilled and peaceful by putting gas in the car. So similarly, we're that eternal spiritual entity, and we're only happy and fulfilled to the extent that we direct our propensity for desiring to please God, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the revolution in consciousness of Prabhupada bringing us and imploring us to accept with no force, but with compassion, with compassion, and and so this one in front of the zeros, yata tarur mulani chanina. That's a text also from the Srimad Bhagavatam that gives the same analogy in a different way, like watering the root of a tree. Watering the root of a tree, it's just like, okay, the different branches, twigs, and leaves of the tree can be compared, say, to the different races or species or communities. And let's say if if I try to water, I'll water this clump of branches and twigs and leaves over here, and but that's not the process. The process is, well, Sankhya Yoga means to find the root. Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of serving God with devotion. To quote the Hebrew, V'hafta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavka b'kol nafshka b'kol modecha. When Jesus was asked what's the most important text from the scriptures, that's what he quoted, the Hebrew. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. It's from the 6th chapter of Deuteronomy. So bhakti means watering the root. If we've watered the root, it means we automatically found the root. So bhakti includes the other yoga processes. So if we water the root, all the branches, twigs, and leaves are naturally satisfied. It goes to the same place as putting all the pebbles in the center, and then there's synergistic resonant ripples. And so we can understand that if we learn the art and the science, we shift our consciousness to dedicate ourselves to cultivate mastery to serve the absolute truth. Absolute means that which is not changed in time and space, that which is true in all time and space. So a relative truth would be, I'm David Wolf, 63 years old, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Was I David Wolf a million years ago? Will I be David Wolf a million years from now? No. So that's relative truth. Absolute truth, I'm not this body, I'm spirit, soul, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, true, good, and beautiful in all time and space. So we cultivate mastery to serve the absolute truth. We water the root of the tree, then all the branches and twigs are satisfied. And that means we're serving all living entities of all races, all political parties, all yes, that all species, all nationalities, all ideologies, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and otherwise, if we're not serving God, then our directions at service are going to cause some discord, maybe a lot of discord. They might apparently serve some, but they'll be doing senseless violence to others, maybe other species or others from another nationality or like that. And so so this Krishna consciousness, this revolution in consciousness, it's completely world embracing. It's not, well, let's be spiritual. Let's go hide in a cave or something. I mean, for some, maybe very, very few, their authentic spiritual process is to hide in the cave. And this really gets to the whole transformation of consciousness represented by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He thought, oh, I'll be spiritual, I'll go to the forest. And as he got realization, he realized no, for me to be spiritual, for me to serve God, for me to please God, means I pick up my bow and fight. And because he was a kshatriya, and his role was to protect innocent citizens who were being attacked and not being protected by the corrupt governance. And so probably for most of us, our dharma, our spiritual service, is not to pick up a bow and start killing people, but for Arjuna it was. At the same time, we all have our particular our particular battle of Kurukshetra, and our service is to not run away from it, to not run away from it, and to fight that battle with full enthusiasm and non-attachment to the results. And for some of us, that battle, it might be in the field of business and commerce. It might be in the field of education. It might be in the field of raising children. It might be in the field of medicine. I'll mention, and some of you may have heard me share aspects of this story, but anyhow, when I was back in the early mid-90s, I was in a master's degree program in social work, and we had different courses, and in all the papers I was writing, in all the papers I was writing, yeah.
Huh?
Hi. I see someone's not on mute. Perhaps we can attend to that. Jaganivas Prabhu, are you the host who can take care of muting? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anyhow, in all of the papers I was writing for the different professors, I would give, in the language of social science, I would give the ancient wisdom of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. I remember there was one course, it was a course in community organizing. And the professor, his name is Jerry O'Connor. He was in his mid-60s at that time. I don't know what's happening with Jerry now. And he was a leader in the field of community organizing. Community organizing wasn't really a topic I was so interested in, but I was in a course in it. Things like political advocacy and things like that. Anyhow, one day I came into the class, and Jerry, he embarrassed me in front of the entire class. Jerry said, he said to everyone, he said, you have a genius in this class. So I know that I am not a genius, but he shared with the class that he'd been grading thousands of papers for 35 years as a professor, and he never saw a paper on political advocacy and community organizing shining as brightly and as brilliant as the paper that he had read from David Wolf. So again, I know I am no genius, but actually, there's a chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam contains 335 chapters. One chapter is entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And it is. So everything's there in the Bhagavatam. So I was writing a paper on political strategy and advocacy. Not something, for me, it's kind of a dull topic relatively. There's like that, but anyhow. So I was bringing in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. Prabhupada talks about different levels of political strategy, and Prabhupada gives his purport. So I was just bringing it in to that paper, and Jerry O'Connor, he was a leader in the field internationally. He'd never seen anything like it, and I was doing it in the language of social science. So it was in language that he appreciated. And he was like, where did you get this? I never saw anything like this. And so I was stealing everything from Prabhupada and the Bhagavatam. I'm admitting that now, And then I was doing that, and all my professors were having, in whatever the topic was, it was counseling, psychology, leadership, communication training. And so I had no, that was a master's degree course. I had no intention at the time to do a PhD. But one day, my professors, they surrounded me, they ganged up on me, and they said, like, well, you have so much to offer to the world. You have so much to offer. We really encourage you. We recommend you do a PhD. You have so much to offer. We don't even know where it's coming from, what you're giving us, but it's amazing. And I was giving them the light of the Bhagavad in these fields, psychology, social service, politics, economics, anthropology, like that. So to make to sweeten the deal, so to speak, they actually arranged, not only did they give me what's called a teaching assistantship, where instead of paying tuition, I would, be a teacher like that. But they actually arranged the top university fellowship. Actually, if we adjust for inflation, they actually gave me, in addition to tuition waivers, about $50,000 or $60,000 for me to do a PhD. It's true. And it's all because I was simply it's like To Face Contemporary Reality, that's the title. It's about our opportunity is to shift our consciousness by becoming deeply realized in the Bhagavatam. All spheres of human endeavor are expertly described there in the most authentic, transcendental way. And the professors, they urged me that whatever you're giving to us, give it to us straight. And I mean, actually, out for my PhD, I was going to do it on some other topic just to get it finished. And my major professor, his name is Neil Abel, he said, no, I want you to do your PhD dissertation on something that you're really inspired by. And so he told me, he said, I've seen you walk around campus mumbling something and holding some cloth bag. I've seen you do that a lot. I said, yeah, I do that. He said, you seem really passionate about that. I said, yeah, I'm really into that. He said, well, you should do your PhD dissertation on that. So it was clear, it was Srila Prabhupada speaking through Professor Neil Abel, who was my mentor, and that became our dissertation, Effects of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on Stress, Depression, and the Three Gunas. And so the world is waiting, eager for this ancient wisdom in whatever our fields are. And at the same time, it's not a whimsical thing. It's not, yeah, I'll go in, because if we can go into here and there, yeah, I'll do it in a spiritual way. But if we're, to the extent that we're not deep and fixed and realized and clean and alive in true spiritual consciousness, aligned with these ancient timeless wisdom traditions, then in the name of giving spiritual consciousness in this field or that field, whether it's in economics or academia or agriculture or medicine, in the name of that, we'll just get confused and bewildered, and we'll probably mislead, misguide, and misinform people, and we'll be doing a disservice. So there's a text in Chaitanya Charitamrita Stavara Jangamadeki Naketeki Taramurti Sarvatra Hayanija Istadeva Sporti. And that describes that God, and the opportunity for God consciousness and service to God and self-realization, it's everywhere. Krishna is everywhere. And Antarasta, Parmano Chantarastam. Krishna is within every atom, even with every proton and electron. I heard a lecture recently, Prabhupada was speaking. Krishna is not just in every atom, he's in every subatomic particle, the protons, the electrons. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Ridesher Junatishtati. Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. Okay, but then the question is, how much are we realizing God in everyone's heart? How much are we realizing God and the potential for service to God in our profession and in our family life and in our relationships and in our recreation? It's there, but how much realization do we have? And for me, that points to, I'll use the term Prabhupada uses, sadhana. That points to sadhana. Like just before here, well, we started our program today at 7 a.m. my time. So for about 4 hours before 7 a.m., I'm engaged in sadhana, in the line of, in the spirit and substance of what Prabhupada gave us, chanting Hare Krishna, studying Srila Prabhupada's books, and to the extent that I'm strong in my sadhana, and any time of day is wonderful for sadhana, and especially the early morning pre-dawn hours are especially potent. They're especially sattvic hours to help us rise above the effects of rajas and tamas, like greed and lust and envy and jealousy, right? And so to the extent that I'm strong in my sadhana, then I'm realizing throughout the day, and who I'm talking to, who I'm coaching, the classes I'm teaching, my relationship with internet, my relationship with money, my relationship with food, to the extent that I'm strong in my sadhana, then I get realizations of how to give this ancient timeless wisdom wherever I go. And to the extent that I'm weak in sadhana, then I just get disturbed by the inherent disturbances of material energy. And I'll close with something else we shared with Tim in our phone conversation yesterday, that so it's essentially about a revolution in consciousness. I said, like, let's say it relates to the automobiles 1900 and air pollution, but okay, let's say that the governmental economic system is democracy, capitalism, or maybe it's socialism or monarchy or communism, whatever we want to call the structures. Okay, and so many, there's oligarchy, et cetera, whatever we want to call the structures. Well, now, if the consciousness of the inhabitants of that structure is full of greed, envy, jealousy, madness, illusion, lust, self-deception, hostility, need to control and dominate, because to the extent that I'm not satisfied, content, and peaceful in myself because of self-realized God consciousness, to the extent that I'm not satisfied in all my relationships, I'm going to need to exploit you to try to feel powerful. Or I'm going to need to blindly follow you just to feel a sense of belonging. And this is the essence of evil. This is the essence of material consciousness. So to the extent that that's the consciousness, whatever you call the system, capitalism, socialism, democracy, whatever you call the system, it's going to be a hellish place to live. It's going to be a miserable place to reside. And to the extent that the consciousness of the inhabitants of the social, economic, governmental, political system, to the extent that the consciousness is alive, is peaceful, dynamic peace, joy, empathy, compassion, tolerance, alive in self-realization, dedicated to truth, dedicated to truth, and dedicated to win-win, dedicated to serve to water the root of the tree, then whatever the structure, the systemic structure, it's going to be a wonderful, enlivening, life-enriching, relationship promoting, spiritually enhancing place to inhabit. In saying that, just like I shared the example of my paper, it was really a paper on political advocacy in the class with Jerry O'Connor that was in the mid-90s. Now, for some, their service in changing consciousness might mean to be there in political advocacy. So I'm not denigrating efforts at political advocacy or community organizing, and we're emphasizing that to whatever extent there's not a shift in consciousness, then, to use an analogy from then there's going to be an even worse problem of air pollution. Then the essential disturbance and misery won't be shifted. My focus throughout the course of my lifetime, my particular focus, not exclusively, has tended to be around supporting and endeavoring to caringly challenge shift in individual consciousness. That tends to be like my focus around the um, different programs I've developed and that we conduct. And so I thank you, I thank you very much for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Thanks for your association. Hare Krishna. I'll be glad to hear anyone's viewpoints, comments, if anyone has any questions. Be glad to hear your inspirations, realizations. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Dhira Govinda Prabhu. It was very interesting to hear from you. So we can use this time for any discussions. Really, if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to share your thoughts, and we can take it from there. Maybe I will start first. Okay, there's a comment from Tim.
Yeah,
Yes, Tim. Yes, you're welcome to submit via chat. Yes.
got it. Yes.
Perhaps, Dhira Govinda Prabhu, I will start with a question.
I saw that Damayanti had her hand up.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Damayanti Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. So fun. Yeah, I wanted to share that I recently went through an experience of, and I'm like kind of just the last 2 days, like still kind of going through this experience of looking at the state of the world. Like, for example, and I'm not going to actually I don't want to talk about politics, but there was obviously an election in the US, and I'm not even going to reveal my opinion or anything, but I just want to say that, my spent my like 20s and 30s sort of identifying with one side of politics, then the last few years exploring an independent voices and the other side. I'm not even just going to say which sides or anything, but looking at other voices on the other side, and there's these two sides. And after the pandemic, I got more focused on political and social commentary, and I like right when the election results happened and I saw everyone's responses, it like woke me up, like what I'm doing with my time, and that I don't want to be a part of sides politically. And not that I lost all of my opinions or values, but I realized one side thinks the other side's disgusting and it's devastated. The other side is laughing with joy. And I was like, both of this isn't God conscious. This isn't helping me anyone with God consciousness. And I and I'm not, and that sounds judgmental too, but anyway, I feel I'm challenged to even speak right now, but basically, like, I feel like I got caught up in it, even if I thought I was listening more to voices of reason, still getting caught up in material solutions to material problems, and ultimately in the world of duality. And I mean, not that I was completely forgetting about God or Prabhupada, but it was like a little bit of a nighttime addiction, like listening in to these commentators. And I just feel so like I don't want to be a part of it anymore. Suddenly, like, the elections came in, everyone's more divided, or maybe the division is more apparent. Maybe it was already there. And I just feel like I'd rather, and I really didn't contribute my voice in publicly or Facebook, but now I feel like if I have something to say, like, what do I really have to say? And it's not on a side, it's more like what this class is talking about, and bringing God consciousness, like putting God in the center. And yeah, spirit, just looking at our spiritual, our spiritual essence. Anyway, I don't know what to say. I'm just that this class was helpful for me and reaffirming, like, I want to focus on Prabhupada. I want to vote for Prabhupada and vote for God consciousness, and that be what I contribute to the conversation. And if anything at all, I may just completely unplug from the internet and not hear anyone else's voices except for Prabhupada. That seems like the best for me right now. So that's all. I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Damayanti. I see Tim in Texas wrote, I'm in Texas and feel much the same way. I saw that on chat. Thanks for your sharing, Damayanti. And also I see a chat from Tim and from Shivanand Somasundar. And yeah, actually something comes to mind, Damayanti, and I'll share this. This was, okay, you and a few others here, you're familiar with some of our programs like the Safitov Advanced Seminar. Okay, so Safitov Advanced Seminar, it's a six or 7 day intensive in-person seminar. The first one was in 2002 in Belgium. We've conducted about 80 of them, including last month in Gainesville. Anyhow, I remember we had a 7-day advanced seminar, and the first day was Wednesday, November 9th, 2016. No, Wednesday, November 9th, 2016. So why do you remember that date? I'll tell you why. So it was a Wednesday. And November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th was the election here in the United States. Okay. And I also like politics, not something I follow much of it at all. But you know, so, and we have a ground rule that for those in the seminar, they get the great gift that they need to commit to minimize connection with media. You know, just like if they need to be in connection with media to keep in touch with family. But so I follow that ground rule when I facilitate the 7-day course. So I knew I wasn't going to be checking media and things like that. And so before I went to the seminar room, you know, like before I went to the seminar room at 8 a.m., I went to see, I checked and I saw it was a surprising result. Who won the election? It was a surprising result. I thought, interesting. And I saw I had in my email inbox, I had some letters from members of our Safatov community, particularly in North Florida. That's where Damayanti is based, North Florida. And because some members were saying this result of the election is so disturbing, it's just so agitating and disturbing, and they said, yeah, I'm sure this is going to be such an issue in the seminar you're about to go to, and I was prepared that that's going to come up in the seminar. And in that particular seminar there in November 2016, the participants, they were like very socially conscious, politically aware people. So I was ready that, you know, the disturbance, maybe the pain, the sadness around the result was going to be a part of the process. I was ready for that. So we started the seminar. And again, it was these were not people who, like, you know, have their head in the sand, very politically aware people. For 7 days, no one in the seminar mentioned anything about the election and or the results. And it's not that they didn't care, but they were so absorbed. They were so absorbed in their process of distinguishing reality from illusion, their process of pulling the weeds from the garden of their heart, their process of transforming their consciousness. And they knew that whatever the political, social situation, that was their focus, and supporting each other in that there was just not even any space to go, not even any space, because they knew to go to, like, this party, that party, well, the inflation, you know, whatever, to go there, for them it would have been an avoidance from their process of creating a revolution in consciousness. So I just thought that came to me in response to what you expressed, Damayanti. Thank you. And then I see Tim wrote, in sacred text, there's talk that complete faith is ideal. like one best way to get to San Francisco. Okay. Thank you, Tim. That could be interpreted as all or nothing. How do you suggest we bring this consciousness to those who are new to it, or at least open to it, in a way that is digestible? Thank you, Tim. Well, what comes to me hearing your question, what comes to me, well, one thing is empathy. Empathy, because this true spiritual consciousness. Now, empathy doesn't mean I'm going to pretend to agree with someone I don't agree with. It does mean I'm dedicated to understand and seriously consider their point of view and that they feel understood. Now, and empathy and rationality, logic. Because like you say, there's talk that complete faith is ideal. So he on the basis of someone feeling understood, as it is said, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. Often, a great way to show that we care is to show that I'm suspending my advice and my opinion and my preaching and my philosophy to show that I'm understanding what you're saying and what's happening in your inner world. And you show understanding of me, then I'm much more likely to be open to hear your point of view. It's also said, understanding is like life air. The Christian philosopher Paul Tillich said, the first duty of love is to listen. So just like if we have the wind knocked out of us, someone can offer us money or praise, it won't matter. We just want air. So similarly, sometimes in disagreement, resentment, feelings of hostility, hurt, woundedness, sadness, anxiety, fear, sometimes all we want is to be understood, and that's like life air. So, okay, rationality. Complete faith is ideal. Here's the thing, Tim. What I would, on the basis of empathy and understanding, I would suggest everyone has complete faith. Oh, no, no, no. I'm a man of reason, not a man of faith. Nonsense. Nonsense. Everyone has complete faith. Our choice, just like we talked earlier, everyone's going to serve. Our choice is where to direct our propensity for service. We can direct it in ways that are tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, or truly transcendental, which means bhakti, serving for the pleasure of Krishna, the Supreme Person. So it's just like if let's say if someone spends 80 hours a week to develop this business for 5 years. Okay, I'm like that. It means like our faith is revealed by our actions. Our faith is revealed by our actions every time. It means that I have faith that me, my family, that if I give 80 hours per week to this business for the next 5 years, or 40 hours if I drive to this job, I don't like the job, but I have faith, I trust. If I drive to the job, that'll somehow bring me security, happiness, fulfillment. So we can look where I have faith that if I click on this thing, if I watch this TV show, it's going to bring me some fulfillment, satisfaction. I have faith that when I turn the key in the ignition, that there's not a bomb in the car. Okay, so we all have faith. Everyone has faith and trust. So let's establish that rationally. Okay. Now let's consider where is the most reasonable place to put our faith? Where is the most reasonable place to put our faith? Okay, and then we can look at maybe the most reasonable place to play. Just like, okay, let's go. Okay, let's say if I if I look at this watch, pretty simple watch, do I assume the watch formed because the wind blew and then there it was, then the sand became the watch? No, I know there's intelligence behind the creation of the watch. There's an engineer, there is a designer, there's a factory, and there's a CEO of the company. There's intelligence behind this watch. Now let's look at rationality. So let's say if I look at the veins of a leaf or the rotation of the planets. The level of sophistication and organization and structure behind the veins of the leaf or the rotation of the planets is trillions of times more sophisticated than the organization of this watch. So therefore, it's rational. It's rational to put our trust that behind the rotation of the planets, there's a much greater intelligence than behind the watch. We can believe that the rotation of the planets and the veins of the leaf just somehow there was a big explosion, it just came together. We can believe that. That would require a lot of blind faith, right? So reasonable, intelligent faith means that there's an intelligence behind that. Okay, so we can take all of these assertions from the ancient wisdom traditions, every single one, and we can show that to place our trust there, that's the most rational direction. Same thing, same thing. Let's say, we sometimes do this quick thought experiment. Imagine you're looking at a photo of yourself from when you were 5 years old. Okay, so again, we've established I'm saying it proves something, but it's more rational to place our faith that there's an intelligence behind the veins of the leaf than to assume that there was just a big explosion of nothing. Actually, the great physicist Isaac Newton, he had a friend, and the friend came to Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton had created a machine where if you crank the machine, the planets of the solar system, as known at that time, would rotate around the sun. So this friend came and said, "This is ingenious. Who made this?" And Isaac Newton said, "No one," because his friend was an atheist. His friend was said, "No, it all just happened by random chance." And so Isaac Newton said, "No one." And the friend said, "No, no, this is an ingenious little machine. Who made this?" Isaac Newton insisted, "No one." They went on like that for a while. And then at some point, Isaac Newton said, "Look, you insist that the actual planets, which is far more sophisticated, organized, and ingenious than this little toy, that no intelligence is behind it, no person's behind it. But this little toy, you insist there must be a person behind it, must be a person, intelligence behind it. How irrational." So we can start with establishing everyone has faith. Now let's look at, in order to create peace and harmony, where's the most intelligent, reasonable, rational place to place our faith? There's more to say, but that could be a beginning. Thank you, Tim. Bhakti Oasis.
Hare Krishna. I appreciate so much this conversation, and I love hearing from everyone what's happening. And I just wanted to mention, let me lower my hand real quickly. What's coming up for me in this conversation is I'm thinking about recently, a couple of weeks ago, George and I were at a conference at a hotel near our home, but it was a nice hotel. It was near the beach. There were 2 different pools that you could go to, 2 different hot tubs, waterfalls. It was amazing. And so we invited friends, not Krishna conscious friends, but friends of Saraswati and their parents to come be with us for the afternoon. And we spent all day playing in the pools, and we were near the ocean, and we paid for everything. We paid for ice cream and pizza, and we had just a wonderful time together. And at the end of the day, after we hugged and they went home and made sure, everybody had a really nice time, I sent them a message and I said, "Thank you for coming. And I want you to know that we apologize for any offenses that we might have made or any errors that have occurred in our time together." And they said, "This must be for someone else. You sent this message in error." And I said, "No, I'm just letting you know that, I really appreciated your time today, and that, I'm certain that there were errors, and I'm certain that there were mistakes that were made, and I'm certain that there were offenses and that they weren't intentional. And I want you to know that. I acknowledge that they exist. And the message, I saw the little 3 dots pop up and then they went away. And it was a long time before I got a response back. And basically they were like, no one has ever, no one talks like that here in Alabama, Floribama. No one talks like that. They're like, and if you sent this to anyone in my family, they think you were crazy. But they were like, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate the sentiment. And so the reason I bring it up is because I'm hearing, I can't run an afternoon at the pool with my kid and her friends and my friends. Like I can't make an afternoon perfect. I know that I'm making thousands of mistakes. I'm unconsciously offending them. I do it with my in-laws all the time. There's like cultural differences. I'm supposed to stand when they come into the room. I think I'm being polite by moving out of the way so that other people can greet them. And so I sit down out of the way, I'm offending them. So I know that I don't have perfect senses, but I think there's something about being in a position of leadership or a position of responsibility where people want perfection. They want human perfection. They expect human perfection. Like, oh, you're the president of this company, or you're the president of the United States or something. And so then it's like, oh, you're going to be perfect, or your people you appoint are going to be perfect. But I like the way you started out the conversation talking about how there is a perfect person and he is in charge of everything. And then that kind of makes everything complete for me. That makes it all complete for me. I don't have to worry about it in the sense of me needing to rearrange anything, or I can just apologize for my deficiencies and then just continue to do my best service and kind of let everything else be handled by the most competent person to handle it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Danielle. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your personal sharing about you and your husband. I'll mention Danielle and George. Her husband is an orthodontist, and they're establishing a bhakti-centered, Prabhupada-centered orthodontic practice in Orlando, and so they're bringing Krishna consciousness to the field of medicine. Thanks for sharing. And Danielle, yeah, you're sharing that quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I'll just read part of it again, since it's so aligned with the principles you shared. Bhaktisiddhanta says, the world stands in no need of any reformer. The world has a very competent person guiding its minutest happenings. The person who finds that there is scope for reform of the world himself stands in need of reform. The world goes on in its own perfect way. No person can deflect it but the breath of a hair from the course chalked out by Providence. When we perceive any change being actually affected in the course of events of this world by the agency of a particular individual, we also know that the agent possesses no real power at any stage. The agent finds himself driven forward by a force belonging to a category different from himself. The course of the world does not require to be changed by the activity of any person. What is necessary is to change our outlook on this very world. So thanks, because we have human imperfections. And that's why, at the beginning of the program, Jaganivas Prabhu, he showed on the screen the mantras, Om Manganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Those mantras, my mood in those mantras is, let whatever I say not be about, here's David Wolf's ideas. Whatever I say, sure, if I'm communicating with my personality and my psychophysical nature, my realizations, let whatever I say be aligned with the mission and the message of the perfect person. Let me completely represent God. Let me be an instrument for that. And then whatever I say, it's truly doing good in the absolute sense. And let not my ego and my imperfections get in the way. Let me be an instrument for the perfect person. Thank you. The perfect person who is free from human defects. I saw there was a hand up from Raghav.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I actually had a bit of a question and a dilemma to myself because, you see, all these political situations that are happening in the world right now, right? They are important for my future because as a teenager, I'm growing up and these political situations are going to affect the way that I live in 30, 40 years. And I just wanted to ask that, since I'm also trying to find faith, to uncover the faith in myself, these constant political like situations, they're also like very interesting, and they're also affecting me. So I just wanted to ask, how how can I distinguish myself, and I wouldn't say step away, but know when to stop thinking about the political situations and focus more on my faith, because yeah, just focus more on my faith in general.
Thank you, Raghav Prabhu. I appreciate your sharing. I appreciate your presence here. You're a young man in your teenage years, and you're seeing that, yeah, these political situations, environmental situations, they affect you, they affect your life, they affect the future generations. So, you know, again, in your sharing, I'm reminded of the situation, the dilemma that Arjuna faced there. In a sense, Arjuna was a politician. He was a warrior. There's a text in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Tasmad Sarveshu Kaloshu Mamanushmara Yujacha Mamarpita Manobudir Mamiveshyasya Samshaya Krishna. He encourages Arjuna. He says to Arjuna, fight and think of me. Fight and be God conscious. So that now, of course, for each of us in each area of life, at each phase of life, whether teenage years, young adult, middle age, it's like it's our responsibility and opportunity to determine what is our battle, what is our fight, what is our service, what is our service. And I know for myself, to the extent that I'm such for me, this is not a this or that. This is completely this and that. To the extent that I'm strong and alive and vibrant in my sadhana, in my self-realization, in my cultivating God consciousness, cultivating my trust in Prabhupada and Prabhupada's books and Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, to the extent that I'm alive in that, then I'm clear on what battles are my dharma to fight. And actually, in my life, some of you are aware, I'm involved in many things to reveal truth, and I endeavor to see no one as an enemy, but there are actually many who see me as an enemy. I've heard it very directly, a lot of hostility directed towards me. We're endeavoring to reveal the truth about Srila Prabhupada's disappearance pastime. So to the extent that I'm strong in my faith through Prabhupada's books, my rational faith, and I'm enthusiastic in cultivating Krishna consciousness, then I'm clear how and where, in what spheres in the world to be out there. And maybe it's politics, maybe it's environmentalism, maybe it's starting up this business, maybe it's being a farmer, maybe it's in this relationship, or whatever it is. And so for me, it's not this or that. It's like, to the extent that I'm cultivating my sadhana with attentiveness and presence, then I'm very clear how to act in the world in a way where I'm not entangling myself in others and lower consciousness, but I'm creating change. I'm based on the healthy revolution of consciousness that Prabhupada gave to us through Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Raghav. I appreciate your question and presence. I see on chat.
A comment by Shivanand Prabhu.
Sure, yeah, I'll read it. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for sharing your experience in elevating the consciousness. In the example you shared about sharing Srimad Bhagavatam's view on community development, I wonder if you presented as God-centered as Srila Prabhupada presented. Was that acceptable to the professor? In the other way, if we just present his principles without bringing God into the picture, it will not be viable to implement the principles in reality. So both ways, it seems a challenge. So it will be interesting to hear how you presented it and how they received it. Thank you, Shivanand Somasundar Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yeah, well, yeah, so this relates to what we presented with Jerry O'Connor that led to the PhD. Yeah, they insisted I give everything directly. So I didn't water down. At the same time, I communicated in language. Actually, there's many letters from Prabhupada. There's one letter from Prabhupada if from December 1972, and Prabhupada's writing to one of his students, and he writes, he said, look, he said, the highest development of your Krishna consciousness is going to be shown to the extent that you're capable to effectively communicate these universal principles in such a way that whoever you're speaking to, they're going to get it. Their consciousness will be transformed. So Prabhupada, he's saying there, and there's many other letters like that too. And what Prabhupada, he's emphasizing the essence of empathy. He's saying whether you're talking to university professors, whether you're talking to kindergarten students, whether you're talking to political advocates, you're talking to yogis, or whoever you're talking to, that we're so realized in the universal, inviolable principles of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam that we find language and we find ways to communicate it effectively. So that's what I endeavor to do with these top professors. Communicate without compromising, without watering down. And, maybe I would use terminology like the supreme or the ultimate rather than the personality of Godhead. So giving the principles without watering down and in endeavoring to give them in a realized way, meeting people where they're at and communicating a way that encourages their growth and development towards super soul. Another letter, also from December 1972, from Srila Prabhupada to Balavanta Prabhu. I'll mention Balavanta Prabhu. Some of you are familiar with the Safitov courses. Balavanta is a graduate of the Safitov Foundational and Advanced Seminars. He's a very prominent lawyer in North Florida. And Balavanta, Srila Prabhupada encouraged him to run for President of the United States. And under Prabhupada's guidance, Balavanta, he created a political party called the In God You Trust political party. And he actually ran for mayor of Atlanta. And at some point where Prabhupada saw that the devotees who were into it were getting too bewildered, Prabhupada brought closure to it. But Prabhupada writes to Balavanta that he says, if we want to attract intelligent people to this Bhakti Krishna consciousness movement, we need to be really good listeners. And Prabhupada specifies, particularly if we want to attract intelligent people, then we need to be good listeners. And Prabhupada says, understanding their points of view with appreciation, tolerance, respect. Prabhupada doesn't say pretend that you agree with something that's not aligned with the universal principles of this ancient wisdom tradition. But so with the professors, I endeavored to hear them and understand their points of view, and then they were so open to hear what I presented. And when I was presenting, my prayerful endeavor was that I was not misguiding, misinforming, or misleading, and I was authentically, authoritatively representing this ancient wisdom. Thanks for your comments, Shivanand Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Jaganivas, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I had one, but there were so many interesting thoughts from the others, so I just held my view for a while. Yeah, this question is related to um, how we should see Srila Prabhupada's statements, because I think sometimes in discussions within the devotee circle, there is this insistence that um, everything that we are facing right now, Srila Prabhupada has made a point, and we should very rigidly stick to that. So I think Dhira Govinda Prabhu, you may remember some years ago when the COVID situation was there, whether devotees should take the vaccine or not take the vaccine. There was a big rara about that, with quotes going this way and that way, and anecdotes given by Srila Prabhupada on such the subject matter and all that. So the question is, devotees, many of us, we have to vote in an election. We have to make a commitment to certain things. We cannot escape these things, whether it's vaccines or whether it's about certain policies towards the environment, or whether we have to vote locally in our context when it comes to elections and all that. So how do we process our teachings that we have received from Srila Prabhupada in this regard? Because there seems to be more squabbling instead of more realization at times when we don't approach this in the correct spirit.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jagnivas.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I'll mention that earlier this year, I published, so some of you have read this, I know. I published a small booklet called Srila Prabhupada Shastra. I know I've mailed some to Sudarshan and Archana Prabhus like that. And so I addressed this actually. It's called Srila Prabhupada Shastra. And so I regard anything from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam, as being on that fully pure, transcendental, absolute platform. And anything from Srila Prabhupada is fully representing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's our opportunity and responsibility of integrating the different guidelines and the different statements, integrating them so we get more and more of a sense of the totality of the guidance from Srila Prabhupada. And even in that context, so for each of us, we might in valid ways, we might relate differently. We might relate differently according to our particular service and our particular purpose. That doesn't mean whatever we do, let's try to justify different shlokas for different folks. No, that we want to be firm and clear in the inviolable universal principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, of Srila Prabhupada, of Bhagavad Gita, and how we relate and apply them. Just for example, we gave the example of Arjuna. Okay, so when he got spiritually realized, God realized, he got his service is to pick up his bow, and he actually killed big numbers of warriors, because that was his service, to protect innocent people from people who were exploiting and lay them. Okay, then in the 25th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Majjhi Leela, there's the story of Narada Muni and the hunter. Okay, so then I won't go through the whole story, but anyhow, at some point the hunter got completely transformed, and he realized his role, his service to serve God, to be in God consciousness, is to put down his bow. Okay, to put down his bow and stop killing the animals. So he said, well, is the right thing to do, is a spiritual thing to pick up your bow, put down the bow, make up your mind. Okay, so the principles are there. The principles are inviolable, and how we apply to the principle, that requires sincerity and intelligence. And the most vital core is sincerity, as Krishna says. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upiyanti te. Krishna says, for one who's sincere, I'll give the intelligence of how to manage each situation effectively, such that you'll be watering the root of the tree and everyone will be essentially benefited. I don't want to get into it, but there are statements from Prabhupada about vaccines and inoculations, and how it's poisonous, toxic, allopathic medicine, and Prabhupada got vaccines. Okay, so Prabhupada gives the guidelines that, yeah, of course, this is ugra karma medicine, the so-called cure is worse than the disease. So there's statements, and Prabhupada got inoculated. He got inoculated against the Hong Kong flu when he was in Los Angeles in the late 60s. Okay, so where Prabhupada's coming from is always from transcendental and absolute, and how we relate to the different integration of his comments, that requires our sincerity and intelligence. Hare Krishna.
you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Perhaps one last question, because we have had quite a good number of minutes on this.
Dhira
For
Govinda
everyone's
Prabhu,
benefit.
I have a question. It's not pertaining to the presentation. Do you conduct online Sarvatov courses?
Online Safitov courses. Thanks for your question, Sudarshan Prabhu. We do have online programs. Of course, we have our online Bhakti Yoga programs, Bhagavad Gita classes, and I know you've been at some of them, and you're inviting me to some. But we have our whole Safitov transformational coach training program is online. Tim has been to that, and Damayanti and Danielle and like that. And we like earlier this year we did a 2-day and it was like six hours per day online, and it was called Relationships That Work. It's all based on Srimad Bhagavatam. So we do offer different forms of online Safito programs, workshops. Pretty much like once per month, either myself or another Safito facilitator will offer like a 1.5 hour introduction to Safitov experience for newcomers, for people who haven't been through any Safitov courses. So the answer is yes. And like if you want to be like informed of the schedule, you can write to me and I'll put you on the mailing list, or just write to me and I'll share more. So the basic answer is yes. And the next in-person courses will be in January in Landrindod, Wales. We're conducting a foundational seminar there. After that, Tim Francis will be bringing me to Austin, Texas, to facilitate a foundational there. End of January, beginning of February, and late February, early March, I'll be conducting an in-person foundational in Florida. And so we do have online offerings pretty regularly. Thank you, Sudarshan Prabhu. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and association. I'm very enlivened by your enthusiasm and spiritual intelligence.
Thank you, Dhira Govinda Prabhu, and thanks to all the devotees joining us from different parts of the world. And we hope to have this on a continuous basis. This is just the first session. If you have any thoughts as to what we should discuss in the future, please feel free to let me know, or to let Dhira Govinda Prabhu know, and we can take it from there. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dhira Govinda Prabhu.
Thank you. Srila
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha,
Prabhupada ki jai.
Kripasinubhyascha.
Ki jai. Hare
Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha,
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasinubhyascha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha.
jai. Srila
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Thank you.
Dhira Govinda Prabhu ki jai.
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 Thank you, Prabhu.